Good afternoon, all of you, and welcome to this session. To keep time for me, check the time. Welcome to this session, and we are glad that we have been able to avail ourselves to this side event of the Commonwealth, supported by the Kingdom of Eswatini, Canada, and the Commonwealth Secretariat. We as CDPF on this side event called Promoting the Implementation of Disability Rights across the Commonwealth. And we're looking at moving forward with the Commonwealth Disability Inclusion Action Plan, which we have been working on for some time. Oh, just give me a minute. So I want to welcome you so that we start. I need the one that has at the back. Okay. This is a side event that we have been working towards from the time that we started putting together the Disability Action Plan, which has gone into a lot of processes. We have had the working groups that have looked at it. We have had an expert working group that has been looking at the drafts that have been proposed by the different countries. And also there has been a working team, an expert working team and an advisory group that has been advising the group on what needs to be put in the action plan. And we are therefore happy to say that this has met a lot of support from the countries that have been able to be part of the teams, both in the working group and the expert working group. And we have the support of the Commonwealth Secretariat. And moving forward, we are hoping that during CHOGOM in Antigua in November later, at when we will be having the meeting with the heads of government, that this action plan will be approved and that countries now will be able to implement it in their countries. And we are here to talk about it and to see how this action plan can be made into reality, because as we're celebrating the 20 years of CRPD now, we need to fast track the implementation, because we know some countries are far ahead and others are still lagging behind. And so without a lot of without much ado, I will call this side event to order. And I want to ask that we first start by watching a video. We have various members represented here in the side event who will be taking us through the opening speeches and different issues that they have participated in and what their aspirations are as far as having this disability action plan is concerned. So we would like to start by having a 3-minute video from Eswatini. Then we will call on to the Deputy Prime Minister for Eswatini to speak after the 3 minutes video. Thank you.
Eswatini muhle kakhulu, semasimini sihleka sonke, sibambene ngemandla, siyevana ngaphansi kwalangeni, sikhula kahle, siyaphila, siyaphakama, inhliziyo yami isekhaya.
In the heart of Southern Africa, Eswatini's journey towards disability inclusion is a testament to resilience, policy commitment, and a growing national understanding that development cannot be complete if any group remains on the margin.
The census did not include persons with disabilities and persons with albinism. But then we managed to push for this Central Statistics Office to include a question that would ask if there is a person with a disability at home and if there is a person with albinism.
Eswatini's disability mainstreaming journey is grounded in international conventions, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities.
As a country, we've been intentional in advancing and protecting the rights of persons with disabilities. And this is captured in our Constitution of 2005.
The government of Eswatini does not merely speak about placing importance on the affairs of people with disabilities, but institutionalizes the commitment by placing the office of the Deputy Prime Minister as the official and permanent custodian of disability affairs in the country.
The ratification of the UN Convention gave birth to the Disability Policy of 2013. Thereafter, this policy gave birth to the Disability Act of Parliament of 2018.
With the adoption of international, continental and regional instruments, Eswatini has steadily moved from promise to action.
We also want to champion the lives of persons with disabilities. There is access to education that is part of us, and cultural activities.
The National Disability Plan of Action 2024 to 2028 stands as Eswatini's ambitious blueprint towards building a truly inclusive society. At its core, the plan strengthens legal protections, coordination mechanisms, and practical interventions designed to ensure that disability inclusion becomes part of everyday governance rather than an isolated agenda.
We also had to work on an implementation plan, popularly known as the Eswatini National Disability Plan of Action of 2024-2028. And this plan has been costed to ensure that implementation covers all sectors.
Recognizing the importance of coordination and mainstreaming, Eswatini established the National Advisory Council for Persons with Disabilities, together with a dedicated secretariat, structures designed to ensure disability issues are integrated across sectors, institutions, and national planning.
Which we can share later because it's much longer. But I would like now to invite the Deputy Minister for Eswatini, Honorable Lucile Dalida, to open. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And I would like to thank, of course, the Commonwealth Secretariat and the countries gathered here today, joining us on this important and noble event. Chair, I would like also to thank our co-chairs, Canada and New Zealand. And also, it would be amiss of me not to thank our director, Figile, who has worked tirelessly together with the Commonwealth Secretariat, hence this side event today. And we've seen the documentary. Apparently, the documentary speaks to the frameworks that the country has developed. This also speaks to our Constitution of 2005. The country has realized notable strides following the costed plan of action of 2024 to 2028. So I will just mention a few strides emanating from our plan of action. Basically, we've looked into national coordination and mainstreaming, and we're able to establish an interministerial committee bringing together 24 government line ministries to ensure coordinated disability inclusive policy and programming across all sectors. What we have observed as the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister is that the word "leave no one behind" has become the slogan of the country in all corridors. Why? Because of this action plan that has seen some parts being implemented. Advocacy and awareness raising is done on public forums, and we also commemorate International Day of Persons with Disabilities, including persons with albinism. Also, when it comes to inclusive education, we are aligning ourselves with the education reforms, Article 24 of the CRPD, by strengthening policy, teacher training, early identification, and inclusive design, prioritizing competency-based education, ICT integration systems thinking, and the universal design for learning. I'm happy to mention that in our midst, we also have our teacher who is deaf from our School of the Deaf, my namesake, Tulisile. Also under health and well-being, we have integrated disability screening into commemoration days, and we have developed a newborn screening tool for early identification and intervention. Coming to skills development and employment, this is where we celebrate a flagship achievement. We always come up with a Job and Entrepreneurship Expo every year, where our disability community comes and share experiences and ideas with the private and public sector. Also, when it comes to social protection, we are expanding our social assistance grants, assistive devices, and supporting independent living for vulnerable persons with disabilities through Decent Shelter program, which is doing very well in the country. And of course, we don't leave behind our persons with albinism. Gender equality and underrepresented groups, we recognize that women, youth, and of course, our marginalized disability groups face double discrimination. So we're implementing targeted economic empowerment and education programs for these groups. When it comes to emergency and humanitarian action, we are mainstreaming disability and disaster response and food security programs to ensure no one is left behind during crisis. Fortunately, we've just reviewed our disaster management agency law, and now it is a law which also caters for people with disabilities. When it comes to sports, culture, and recreation, that's another flagship initiative that we are proud of as a country and as a family with disabilities. We have our music and art festival where we celebrate the creative talents of persons with disabilities. And these cultural platforms promote dignity, challenge stereotypes, and demonstrate our abilities and positive contributions to society. Infrastructure and environment, again, we're improving accessibility in public infrastructure through infrastructure audits, and we're working well with our city councils as well. And we look into universal design, transport systems, digital information, and essential services, because accessibility, we all know, is the foundation of participation and equality. In conclusion, Eswatini's commitment to supporting and adopting the Commonwealth Disability Inclusion Plan of Action represents a transformative step towards advancing disability rights across the Commonwealth nations. The Plan of Action provides a strategic framework for member states to integrate disability inclusion into all aspects of governance, policy development, and service delivery. By endorsing this initiative, Madam Chair, Eswatini demonstrates its dedication to creating an equitable and inclusive society where all persons with disabilities have equal opportunities and access to all sectors. We'd like to thank you sincerely for affording us this opportunity, and we feel really honored to be part of this event. And it would be amiss again of me not to recognize the Commonwealth Disabled People's Forum. Thank you once again. Siyabonga.
Thank you so much, Madam Deputy Prime Minister, for those very insightful remarks. And we appreciate the efforts that Eswatini has put into this action plan moving forward. I would like now to call on the head of Canada delegation, Parliamentary Secretary, Leslie Church, to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Good afternoon, Deputy Prime Minister. It's a pleasure to join colleagues from across the Commonwealth and beyond for this important discussion. Let me begin also by recognizing the leadership of the Commonwealth Disabled Persons Forum, the Commonwealth Children and Youth Disability Network, and members of the Advisory Group of Persons with Disabilities and Disabled People's Organizations. Your advocacy and lived experience continue to shape more inclusive policies and institutions right across the Commonwealth. Thank you. Canada is pleased to have been engaged in this important work from the outset, including initially serving as co-chair alongside our esteemed colleagues from Eswatini in the development of the Commonwealth Disability Inclusion Action Plan. We also welcome New Zealand's leadership in stepping in and joining Eswatini as co-chair to help bring this important work forward towards its completion. Our engagement reflects a broader commitment to advancing disability inclusion both at home and internationally, and to working collaboratively with Commonwealth partners to share approaches and learn from one another. The Commonwealth Disability Inclusion Action Plan represents an important step forward in strengthening a shared approach to disability rights across a diverse group of countries. It helps advance a common understanding that disability inclusion is a human rights imperative, one that must be reflected across policies, programs, and services. As we meet today, we are pleased to note that a final draft of the action plan is currently under consideration by law ministers across the Commonwealth. including in Canada. At this stage, indications are encouraging. However, as with all processes, formal endorsement remains subject to approval by heads of government at the upcoming Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in November. In that context, we see today's discussion as a valuable opportunity to continue exchanging perspectives and reinforcing the importance of disability inclusion across the Commonwealth while the process of consideration and endorsement of the action plan moves forward. Regardless of the process timelines, there are clear areas where we can continue to make progress together. First, disability inclusion must be integrated across all sectors. For example, Canada's Accessible Canada Act and ongoing efforts to improve accessibility in federally regulated sectors like transportation, telecommunications, and digital services, alongside emerging work on accessible and equitable artificial intelligence standards, demonstrate how cross-sectoral action can help ensure that new technologies are designed from the outset to remove barriers rather than create them. Second, strengthening data and accountability remains critical. Better information helps us understand where gaps persist and how to target our efforts effectively, as seen in Canada's use of disaggregated data through initiatives such as the Canadian Survey on Disability to inform policy and monitor progress. Third, meaningful engagement of persons with disabilities is fundamental. Inclusive decision-making leads to stronger, more responsive outcomes. As reflected in Canada's approach to the development of the Accessible Canada Act and through ongoing consultations in the development of accessibility standards to the design and major implementation of initiatives such as the Canada Disability Benefit, which has involved engagement with persons with disabilities and their representative organizations. As discussions on the action plan continue, it will be important to sustain momentum through dialogue, collaboration, and knowledge sharing across the Commonwealth. Canada remains committed to supporting these efforts, including by contributing to ongoing exchanges of best practices and practical approaches to advancing inclusion in diverse national contexts. Guided by the principle of nothing without us, we must continue to ensure the meaningful engagement of persons with disabilities across all aspects of this work. This includes aligning our efforts with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which provides a shared foundation for rights-based and inclusive approaches. Inclusion is a shared responsibility, and progress is often incremental. By continuing to work together across governments and in partnership with persons with disabilities, we can help ensure that our collective efforts lead to more accessible and inclusive societies over time. And I think I share the sentiments of the Deputy Prime Minister, who called this a transformative step across the community of nations in the Commonwealth. That is right. Thank you very much for all of your participation today.
Thank you very much for your support also in this journey. And we hope that moving forward, we are going to have more support, especially when it comes to making us visible and able to function and implement some of the actions that we are proposing to do. Next, I will request for us to play a short video from our General Secretary, Richard Reiser, who was not able to come.
Hello, my name is Richard Reiser, and I'm very pleased to be with you. I'm the General Secretary of the Commonwealth Disabled People's Forum, and I am unable to attend New York in person because of health reasons, but I'm pleased to be able to announce, as you will have heard, that the DAP has been approved by the law ministers of the Commonwealth, and it will go forward onto the agenda of CHOGM for the heads of government to support. Why did we produce the DAP? Well, we produced it because of our experience in Rwanda 4 years ago, which was not a very friendly CHOGM. And there were very little effort to get disabled perspectives into the speakers or to make adjustments so that people could actually contribute effectively. Sign language had to bring their own interpreter. The room wasn't big enough for many wheelchairs and so on. So we drafted a disability inclusion protocol, which became a disability inclusion action plan. And the purpose of this is to affirm the commitment of Commonwealth member countries to really implementing full and equal rights for disabled persons, and it provides a framework for doing that. Central to that framework is this idea of a paradigm shift from seeing the problem in the person and their impairment to seeing the problem as a socially created one by the attitudes and environment of employers, education, health, everywhere throughout society, government attitudes, the lack of proper legislation, or when we have legislation actually being implemented. So there's a big scrutiny job. There are many other issues that need to be done. And this needs to go forward. And we feel that that is not happening very much in the Commonwealth at the moment. So the DAP is to really be a catalyst to get implementation working. And we need to take UNCRPD far more seriously. Within 2 years of ratifying, and 55 of 56 countries have ratified, countries are meant to lodge a report with the UNCRPD committee in Geneva, explaining how they're implementing the UNCRPD and what they need to do that and what they need to get rid of in terms of legislation which runs counter to it. Until they've done that, they can't really be cross-examined on what they're doing. And when I tell you that the recent report of the UNCRPD in May 26 committee says that 16 of our Commonwealth countries and others are way behind or overdue on filing these reports: Antigua, Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Brunei, Cameroon, Dominica, the Gambia, Grenada, Guyana, Malaysia, Nauru, Papua New Guinea, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and Tanzania. And not all of these are small island countries, though many island countries have actually gone on and done it. But it's no excuse. But the Commonwealth obviously needs to step in to support the smaller countries in doing this. But some of the larger countries really need to get their act together. Malaysia, middle-income country now. Tanzania, quite a large country, as is Papua New Guinea, and get on with doing this. We're also pleased that in the DIAP, the Commonwealth Secretariat has agreed to embed disability inclusion across all its policies, programs and practices, aligned to the UN Convention, explore ways of removing barriers and improving accessibility, and providing reasonable accommodations and assistive technologies to staff and participants in the Secretariat-led meetings. So, sign language should be automatic from now on. Promoting equal opportunities for persons with disabilities in recruitment, retention, and leadership roles within the Commonwealth, and supporting disability awareness or equality training for all staff. These are all important things. But we're also thinking that even if the DAP goes through in CHOGM, how are we actually going to make sure that it really becomes dynamic? And so we've taken the step of going to government of Antigua Barbuda, and they have agreed to support this one-day symposium on implementing disability rights, along with the Commonwealth Secretariat and the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. We're approaching many other organisations and funders to build this up, but we want to open it up to DPO delegates as well as country representatives, and we would like every country to send at least one ministerial or senior civil servant responsible for disability to Antigua so they can stay for this on the 5th and share their experiences. What we want to cover is implementation of UNCPRD friendly legislation, ways of doing it, reasonable adjustments across the range, meeting the requirement of the UNCRPD, looking at the SDGs and how they impact on it, involving disabled people and their organizations, collaborating and sharing expertise, and working out ways forward. So this isn't just a one-off, but we begin a whole stream of work across the Commonwealth, which will finally change the lives of disabled people. If you're interested or you want to go, express your interest to martha.aldridge@commonwealthdpf.org. I thank you.
The picture not appearing, technology issues. But that that is what we are planning as the Commonwealth Disabled People Forum, to put people together and have this action plan strategy implemented, and people to understand it and push their governments to see what areas that they should prioritize as far as the implementation is concerned. And this action plan could have not been approved or reached the stage at which it is if it were not for the Commonwealth Secretariat, which has been very supportive. And through the Human Rights Department, we have had a lot of engagement and had this brought to the place it is today. And I would like to call upon Dr. Justin Petit, who is the head of the Human Rights in the Commonwealth Secretariat, to take the floor now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. First, let me extend my gratitude to the Commonwealth Disabled People's Forum for organizing this event, and then also to the governments of Canada, Eswatini, and Ghana for sponsoring it. Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Parliamentary Secretary, it's a pleasure having you with us today. I'd like to echo Sarah's remarks earlier and thank you both for your government's commitment to the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, and also for the leadership both Canada and the Kingdom of Eswatini displayed in co-chairing the process that resulted in the current draft of the action plan. And of course, I also want to acknowledge and thank others in the room today who were involved in the process, both as state representatives and members of the advisory body. So I'll quickly, or before I get to the update on the action plan, I'll just share a little bit of background about the process and how we got to where we are now. As we've heard in the Commonwealth, as is the case elsewhere, there's an implementation gap. The CDPF, based on their individual experiences and collective experiences at various Commonwealth events, thought it was necessary, and developed the draft in 2023. The following year, at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, heads acknowledged the progress made and commended the efforts to date. Following that meeting, a working group was established to review the action plan and provide a vehicle through which states could have input into the contents of the action plan. 17 countries nominated representatives to participate in the process. All Commonwealth regions were represented, and as we've heard, representatives of Canada, Eswatini, and New Zealand served as co-chairs and guided members through that process. There was an advisory body that was established, comprised exclusively of persons with disabilities, primarily drawn from the Commonwealth Disabled People's Forum, but also included a member of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and some other individuals as well. The Commonwealth Children and Youth Disability Network also provided advisory support, and the Commonwealth Secretariat has fulfilled an administrative role, and we also provided legal and technical expertise as requested by members of the working group. Over the course of 10 months, from May 2025 until March of this year, the working group met 9 times, reviewing the action plan and revising it on the basis of consensus. During this period, the action plan went through 2 substantial edits or revisions. A wide range of issues were considered during the negotiation and throughout the process. Emergencies and natural disasters, public procurement, intersectionality, reasonable accommodation, and accessibility were amongst the issues that received quite a bit of attention. The final draft is not prescriptive. Rather, it provides members guidance on setting out actions that they can take to better implement the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Specific actions within the plan include ensuring meaningful, inclusive, and accessible consultation and involvement of persons with disabilities in the development, adoption, and implementation of laws, of policies, and of programs relating to persons with disabilities. The plan encourages countries to apply a twin-track approach, as Richard set out. Other actions relate to peer exchange, data collection, and capacity building for officials. And as Richard said, the plan also includes actions for the Commonwealth Secretariat, specifically around supporting member country efforts, for instance, in providing technical assistance for legislative drafting, legislative review processes, treaty body reporting, capacity building, and supporting knowledge exchange between countries. And of course, as Richard also clarified, the plan recommends staff training and review of internal policies with a view to better aligning them with the convention itself. So the action plan was, following its review and revision, was submitted to law ministers for approval at the beginning of May. And just a slight clarification on what Richard said. So law ministers haven't yet endorsed it. The period for consideration of the action plan actually concludes tomorrow. So he was just slightly premature, but I'm just as optimistic as he was that it will be endorsed and recommended to heads. So to date, no objections have been received. So assuming that remains the case over the next 20 hours or so, the Disability Inclusion Action Plan will form part of the official papers for CHOGM and go to heads for their endorsement in Antigua in November. So hopefully in just a few months, we will be looking forward to launching the action plan and pivoting to implementation. Thank you.
We'll now go to another remote video from the ex-Minister for Canada, member of advisory group, Carla Quattro, who could not come.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you to the Commonwealth Disabled Peoples Forum for convening this important discussion. It's a privilege to be here at COSP at a moment when we are reflecting not only on progress, but on what it will take to fully realize the promise of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. I've had the opportunity to serve as a member of the advisory group supporting the development of the Commonwealth Disability Inclusion Action Plan. I joined this process somewhat later, bringing with me a perspective shaped by previous experience as a former minister in Canada, where I led the development of both accessibility legislation and a national disability inclusion action plan, as someone who has hosted Commonwealth meetings of ministers, and as a person with a disability. As an advisory group, our focus was clear: to ensure that the Disability Inclusion Action Plan would meaningfully support the implementation of the CRPD across the Commonwealth. We weren't simply trying to produce another framework. We were asking how this plan could become a practical instrument for progress, something that governments could actually use. At its core, the plan represents a recommitment by Commonwealth governments to the principles of the CRPD and to ensuring that their laws and policies are in line with those obligations. It places a strong emphasis on governance, on embedding accountability and coordination within governments, as well as on building the capacity of public institutions through training and knowledge. It recognizes the importance of better data and evidence to drive decision-making and the role of public procurement in advancing accessibility and inclusion. And critically, it focuses on enabling the full economic and social participation of persons with disabilities, not just as a goal, but as an essential outcome of implementation, supported by the Commonwealth Secretariat in helping to convene, support, and facilitate progress across countries. So the question for us was, how do we reinforce rather than dilute the standards set by the CRPD? And how do we shape something that is both ambitious and realistic, strong enough to drive change, but grounded enough that all countries could come along? To be candid, there were moments where it felt less like a collaborative effort to build the strongest possible plan and more like a negotiation between different sides or parties. But that's the reality of multilateral work. And yet, despite those challenges, I believe deeply in the value of what we were trying to accomplish. because there's real power in regional and multilateral processes like this. When countries come together, when they listen to one another, share experiences, and make collective commitments, they elevate the issue. They create momentum. They establish a shared expectation of progress. In the context of the 20th anniversary of the CRPD, that visibility and that collective commitment matter more than ever. Now, let me also be clear. We didn't achieve everything we'd hoped for. We strongly advocated for a meeting of Commonwealth ministers responsible for disability. Those kinds of political forums are critical to driving accountability and sustained action. We also pushed for stronger mechanisms to ensure the meaningful participation of disability organizations, including a representative group engaged throughout the process. Those elements aren't fully reflected in the current plan. But the fact that we didn't get everything doesn't diminish the importance of what is still achievable. What matters now is what happens next. My understanding is that countries are now moving through their own internal processes towards sign-off. This is a pivotal moment, and we cannot take adoption for granted. We need continued engagement, and we need to maintain momentum to ensure that this plan is endorsed and implemented. And we must also continue to push for stronger inclusion as implementation moves forward. For example, the CDPF has called on countries to include persons with disabilities as part of their delegations to CHOGM this year. There are also important next steps already on the horizon, including a day-long symposium during CHOGM on disability rights and CRPD implementation, which can help translate commitments into concrete action. And I want to highlight another critical piece of work, the collaboration with the Commonwealth Parliamentarians Association to develop a framework for accessibility legislation across Commonwealth countries. This is exactly the kind of practical tool that can help high-level commitments turn into real change, into laws, policies, and systems that improve the daily lives of persons with disabilities. So in closing, I would say this. This is the moment. The groundwork has been laid. The plan is within reach. Now, the task before us is to ensure that it is adopted, and more importantly, that it is implemented in a way that truly advances the rights and inclusion of persons with disabilities across the Commonwealth. We know that this is not easy work, but we also know why it matters. Thank you very much.
We are glad that everybody is supportive, and we have aspirations, and we desire to see this action plan implemented. And because of time, I think we will go to our next presenter, and we'll give you only 3 minutes, I think, to Rosanjali. Take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Parliamentary Secretary Canada, all the delegates and friends. I'm Rasanjali Patirage, Founder President of Nation Forum of Women with Disabilities. It is great honor to join this important discussion on promoting disability rights across the Commonwealth and advancing the Commonwealth Disability Inclusion Action Plan. The Nation Forum of Women with Disabilities is an organization led by women with disabilities. We work across Sri Lanka to promote the rights, leadership, and empowerment of women and girls with disabilities through advocacy, leadership training, awareness raising, and community engagement. We support women with disabilities to become active participants and leaders in the society. As a woman with a disability myself, I know that disability inclusion is not only about policies and laws, it is about whether a child with disability can attend school, whether women with disability can find decent work, whether public transport is accessible, and whether persons with disabilities can participate equally in community and political life. 20 years after adaptation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, we have seen important progress. However, many persons with disabilities across the Commonwealth continue to face barriers in education, employment, healthcare accessibility, and access to justice. In Sri Lanka, we have made progress in recognizing the rights of persons with disabilities and strengthening disability inclusive policies. Organization of persons with disabilities are increasingly engaged in advocacy and policy discussions. However, many challenges remain. Accessibility is still limited in many areas. Unemployment among persons with disabilities remain high. And women and girls with disabilities continue to face discrimination and exclusion. These are not challenges unique to Sri Lanka. Many Commonwealth countries face similar issues. This is why Commonwealth Disability Inclusion Action Plan is so important. With approximately 450 million persons with disabilities living across Commonwealth countries, we need a common framework that helps governments move from commitments to action. The action plan provides an opportunity for member states to share experience, learn from each other, and work together to advance disability rights and inclusion. Thank you very much.
Sorry about the speed, but I think we need to, there's so much to say. There's so much that we need to hear, but we need to hear it very shortly. And I would like to now call on Claire, like very shortly, to take the floor. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everybody. Thank you all, and thank you to our esteemed guests for both your support in the development and of this process, and for your time today, because I know what an incredibly busy time this is. My name is Claire, as I said. I am the Assistant Secretary for Equalities with the Commonwealth Disabled People's Forum, but also the Deputy Chair of the Women's Forum. Along with my co-chair, Patience Ogola Dixon, in the Assistant Secretary role, we are responsible for making sure that people with disabilities at the margins receive recognition and support that they need to also be part in these processes. So we were, examining the role of LGBTQ community and making sure that their voices are heard, but also pastoralists, nomadic tribes, all of those sorts of people across the Commonwealth actually have access to in the same way that others do. To me, I'm incredibly proud to be a very, very tiny part of this process. I think for any organisation or any group of countries, any states, to actually be able to effect change, we have to move from this nice to have kind of idea into actual accountability and frameworks that we can hold people to account for. So this, to me, is a very significant step to include us. It will help to build the rates of participation and representation of people with disability in the Commonwealth. Very, very timely, given the current themes of COSP this year. We can't enact change unless we are involved in the processes. Right? We have to, we can't take on leadership roles unless we are at the tables where leadership decisions are taken. But it is more than just the seat, it's about the power that comes with the seat. And that is what something like the Disability Inclusion Action Plan will give us. So those seats will, those opportunities should come with some power and accountability. We also, I think it's really important to note that we as a collective of people can actually contribute in very meaningful ways to the challenges that many of our governments face and are trying to address today. So I think this is also going to give us a mechanism by which we can do that. Often I work a lot in emergency management, and where people always tell me that they're looking for people who can think agilely and navigate complex systems. And when systems don't work, that is our everyday life. So we can move from being a problem to be solved to a part of the toolkit in those solutions. And I think that this is what will give us. So in conclusion, my hope is that we get to the point of passing this document. I feel very confident as well. If Justin's confident, then I'm slightly more confident as well. But we need to see this as the start of the journey, not the final destination. The world is changing. We need these sorts of frameworks and things to be flexible enough to move with it. So I thank everybody involved for their efforts and energies, and I really look forward to using this as part of our toolkit towards a more inclusive future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. I would like now to move to our next speaker, Rhoda Gallagher, who is a Commissioner for Human Rights in Malta and was also a member of the expert working group. Please use like 3 minutes to.
Okay. So I'm from Malta. I'm going to go straight into this. Malta was the first country to support the plan, and we even managed to persuade our Cabinet of Ministers to approve it formally. And our minister also assisted getting it through the CHOGM in Samoa. there were two parts of the review process for the plan that has happened over the last 2 years. There's the disabled people's organizations who are able to speak their minds and say what they really think and push for what they really want. And then there's the expert working group, which is what I was on, where we have people who have to be more cautious, who take a more conservative line. And that's because I think whilst they're all very committed to getting the plan through, they are aware that if they put one step out of place, it could cause the collapse of the plan. And obviously that's the last thing that we want to do. There were two people from Malta who were on the expert working group. There was myself from the equality body, who can be fairly independent. And we also had a representative from the Maltese government. One of the problems that we faced was that unanimity is required. There were very few countries in the group, and there was a silent majority outside of the group. And this was seen by the need to extend deadlines, which I'm sure you're all aware of. We found having two perspectives very useful. The Maltese government representative was able to be progressive, but sometimes had to be a little bit cautious, whereas I, as an independent member of the group, could actually push for inclusion of disabled people more frequently and make sure that what both the government representative and myself wanted to happen was actually pushed for. We pushed very hard, offering alternatives when there were stalemates. We made sure that at every stage where there were issues that came up, especially when there was issues related to disabled people being included in the process, that we really pushed for that. And it got to the point where at the end of the process, we even managed to push them into another meeting so that we could reiterate our position on two extending points, so that we made sure that the outcome of what they reviewed was done in the best possible way. Compromise, unfortunately, is always inevitable in these situations, and we pushed very hard to make sure that whilst we understood that some countries had very real issues with being able to commit to all parts of the plan, that as much as possible was actually able to be put through from the original plan, which is what we had committed to from Malta's perspective. There is now, of course, a silent procedure in place, which goes on until tomorrow. So I would encourage you to lobby members of the government not to get in the way of this, so that we know that it will be able to be discussed in the CHOGM next year. And I am really looking forward to, this year. I'm really looking forward to being in Antigua so that we can make sure that we continue with pushing this plan forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I want to now call on Fatino, who is also a representative from the Pacific region and the latest member of the CRPD committee that was elected the other day, to just in a short time, 3 minutes, tell us about the way forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, delegates, colleagues and friends, I was specifically instructed this morning by Madam Chair to speak about two things: the progress of the Pacific and my candidates as a member of the CRPD. So imagine sitting here trying to cook something up. In terms of the Pacific, let me start by saying that the organizations of persons with disabilities within the Pacific region, whether members or not members of the Commonwealth Disabled Persons, are continuing to advocate for legislative reforms and policy within their own governments, as witnessed in the government of Fiji with their constitutional review, and many other countries who are advocating for legislative reforms. Our own organization, the Pacific Disability Forum, at the policy and strategic level dialogue, we are in the process of finalizing our 5-year strategic plan, as well as the Pacific framework on the rights of persons with disabilities. This year, DFAT has endorsed an investment to support organizations of persons with disabilities through the Pacific Disability Forum in terms of training and capacity building programs. This year, with the support of the Commonwealth Disabled Persons Forum, our youth from respective organizations of persons with disabilities in the Pacific participated in a youth training, free 3-day youth training program. On top of that, the Pacific Disability Forum, through the growing Stronger Together program, continues to support organizations of persons with disabilities who are member organizations of the Pacific Disability Forum in assessing their processes and procedures, and to ensure that they meet the criteria for funding eligibility. Well, that's just some of the successes and the challenges. Well, like any other region, we face multiple budget cuts, we face resource mobilization challenges, and we hope that within the next investment of DFAT and many other donor funded programs, we will be able to secure resources to support, make the promise of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities a reality. On a second note, with reference to my nomination, well, it was a dream came true for me as a person with a disability advocating for the rights of persons with disabilities. But I guess it's not about having a seat secured. It is about what you do with that seat to make a difference in the lives of individuals with disabilities. So for me, I will ensure, as this will be the first ever representative for small island developing states in the committee itself, I will ensure that the voices of my small island developing state countries will be brought to the table. And I will also ensure that in all the discussions of the committee, we will be able to support our small island developing states, especially when it's their time for review and reporting processes. On another note, I will also like to ensure that I contribute significantly to the general comments processes, which is one of the key elements of the work of the UNCRPD committee. With all that being said, I am thankful for the opportunity to be contributing to this discussion as a member of the executive and also witnessing the process of the Equality Action Plan being supported by many countries. I believe we are in the right direction. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Tino. I know your being in the committee will also open other doors and open other avenues for this implementation of the action plan. And now, last but not least, I would like to call on Amanali from India to just make a short intervention and tell us about what is going on in the Asian region. Thank you. Welcome.
Honorable ministers, colleagues, friends, would not take much time, and the story in India is not very different from the rest of the Commonwealth countries. What I would like to say here that this plan, is very crucial, and crucial because the 60% of our population is below the age of 30, and this plan puts the spotlight directly on children and youth with disability to look at the inclusion in education, labor market, political participation. And I would like to reiterate that the political participation of people with disability remains crucial. And without a seat on the table, we will continue to be looked at as a beneficiary, as a number, and not at leaders. So today, I'm with Justin being positive and Richard for the next 20 hours. I hope there are no other interventions. And I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Aman. I would like to call on Mawunyo Yako from Ghana. I am sorry I had not seen that you were in the room. I was looking. I'm sorry. You can make your intervention.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson. Good afternoon, distinguished advocates, excellencies, stakeholders in the community. I'm delighted to be in the room, a truly endearing safe space. I say that because I was part of the executive that reorganized the CDPF. I work very closely with Madam Sarah and Richie Risa, and I happen to have been nominated for this year's elections, but the government of Ghana had withdrawn and wanted us to re-strategize. I thank you for the support that I'd enjoyed, and hoping the next 2 years we would work on yes, engaging and ensuring that I am elected onto the committee, since it remains an aspiration, because I represent the minority groups within the disability movement. And that is why I want to commend the government of Eswatini for having targeted interventions at persons with disability, because it's a great example. And even as we work on the general provisions, we need to also work on the specifics so that we don't further marginalize the minority groups within the disability movement. Ghana has come a very far with experience demonstrating the progress is possible when disability inclusion is treated as a national development priority. Growing engagement of organizations of persons with disability in public decision making. The government of Ghana policy of 5% employment quota for persons with disabilities access to employment across public and private sectors. Beyond seeing disability as welfare, we are increasingly recognizing disability inclusion as a matter of rights, participation, and nation building. The challenge we must confront: progress has not yet translated into equal outcomes. Physical barriers still exclude, communication barriers still silence, attitudinal barriers still discriminate, access to assistive technology remain inadequate, employment and economic opportunities remain uneven, disability disaggregated data remain insufficient. Too many persons with disabilities continue to be invisible within the public systems. Not all disability experiences are the same. Women and girls with disabilities face multiple layers of discrimination. Children with disabilities continue to experience exclusion from education and social services. Persons with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities remain among the least visible in policy discussions. Rural communities often face compounded disadvantages. I represent minority groups, as I said, and I'm looking forward to the adoption of the CDPF action plan. The action plan presents an opportunity to move from aspirations to implementation. The priority areas: disability inclusive governance and leadership, better disability disaggregated data for evidence-based decision making, inclusive healthcare and rehabilitation services, accessible digital transformation and technology, quality inclusive education and lifelong learning, economic empowerment, and decent work. From the Commonwealth Action Plan must become more than a policy document. It must become a mechanism for measurable change. We need stronger accountability, sustainable financing, clear benchmarks, peer learning among Commonwealth countries, meaningful participation of persons with disability at every level. We look forward to steering leadership in the Commonwealth on this cause. Nothing about us without us. The future of disability inclusion will not be determined by the strength of our declarations, but by the courage of our implementation. Rights become meaningful only when they are experienced in everyday life. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mawuyo. CDPF has a diverse representation of even women. And last but not least, we'd like to shortly play a video from our youth representative, Kihembo from Uganda, who is non-verbal. and very, very influential in the IT sector and education. Let's watch the video shortly.
Distinguished delegates, colleagues and fellow advocates, my name is Kihembo Wilbert, and I come from Kasese, Uganda, in rural Africa. I am a non-verbal individual living with cerebral palsy. That's why you are hearing my written words being read loudly by someone else. I currently serve as the youth officer for the Commonwealth Disabled Persons Forum, and I'm proud to be part of a growing movement of young persons with disabilities who are working to promote inclusion, meaningful participation, and equal opportunities across the Commonwealth. In 2024, we established the Commonwealth Disabled Youth Forum, a dynamic and rapidly growing network connecting young persons with disabilities from across Commonwealth countries. Through initiatives such as our capacity building webinar series, we have created spaces where young people can learn, exchange experiences, build leadership skills, and strengthen their collective voice. Our message is simple: the voices of young persons with disabilities matter. Across the Commonwealth and around the world, young persons with disabilities continue to face barriers in education, employment, leadership, political participation, and access to services. Too often, decisions are made about us without our meaningful involvement. Yet we know that inclusive societies are stronger societies, and that sustainable development cannot be achieved while millions of persons with disabilities remain excluded. That's why the Commonwealth Disability Inclusion Action Plan is so important. It provides a practical and rights-based framework to advance the full and equal enjoyment of human rights by persons with disabilities, consistent with the principles of the UN Convention on the Human Rights of Persons with Disabilities. It recognizes the importance of accessibility, non-discrimination, participation, equality of opportunity, and the meaningful engagement of persons with disabilities in decision-making processes. Importantly, the action plan acknowledges that young people make up the majority of the Commonwealth's population and calls for particular attention to the rights and inclusion of children and young persons with disabilities. This recognition is both timely and necessary. Young people are not only beneficiaries of policy. We are partners, innovators, leaders, and agents of exchange. We welcome the action plan's commitment to meaningful consultation, a principle of nothing without us. We support its emphasis on disability inclusive governance, capacity building, and accessible participation, and the removal of barriers that prevent persons with disabilities from contributing fully to society. However, commitments alone are not enough. What matters now is implementation. We need investment, accountability, and sustained collaboration between governments, organizations of persons with disabilities, civil society, and international partners. We need to ensure that disability inclusion is embedded across all policies and programs, including those related to education, employment, climate action, technology, health, and governance. As young persons with disabilities, we are ready to contribute. We are ready to lead. We are ready to help shape solutions that create more inclusive communities and more equitable societies. Let us move beyond consultation to partnership. Let us move beyond promises to action. And let us work together to build a future where every person with a disability can participate fully, exercise their rights equally, and realize their full potential. Thank you for listening.
We want to appreciate the diversity of inclusion and what it means to be able to reach out to every different type of disability that is there, and the different uh, uh, ages that we serve, like the young, the elderly, the middle-aged, and across board women and girls and young people with disabilities. And now we come to the end of our session. I think if there is a question, maybe a question or two from the audience, if there's a comment, but very shortly because we are also conscious of time, but we have a few minutes. If we can have one or two, then we will do the closing. I welcome anyone with want to raise their hand. Yes, madam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine is of interest, especially when we are gathered in this manner. I am interested in assistive technologies that can enhance the learning of learners with autism, especially the non-verbal, like the Ugandan experience.
Any other? You want to know?
I'm very happy to answer the autism question. I'm autistic, so lovely to meet you. Yeah, so assistive technology is wonderful, and there are some really fantastic, which I'm very happy to talk to you about after this as well, some great leaps and bounds in supporting learners who are autistic. I think some is co-designed and built with autistic people and other learners, and it's fabulous, and some maybe not so great. But what I think is really, really important is that we could, even through the DAP, have a look at the way that technology assists learning and see if we can use that to enhance the work that we're doing with the Commonwealth and through the DAP processes, because we don't always have to develop things from scratch. We can work smarter, not harder. So, you know, let's harness what's out there and see if we can work with the developers, the designers, and adapt it. We've got lovely, wonderful young people like Yembo who there's not much he can't do. But in terms of the importance of it, I think if we're having conversations about what governments could do to support, I think it's really important that we bring governments along with us and look at technology. It could be expensive up front, sure, I'm not going to deny that, but there are lots of savings and lots of better ways to use resources that we can get through technology to actually improve the lives of autistic people. Very quick example, there is currently an app that's available that actually has, for people around the world, videos and tracking and connections with therapy teams and things like that for your families who are trying to continue therapy at home, which is, you know, will soon become very widely available. Now, there is a cost to that. Obviously, the developers need to make money. However, if governments consider the cost of supporting families to have access to that tech versus the cost of supporting people and autistic people who've never had support in terms of lost employment opportunities, poor health outcomes, that investment is very small, but it goes a very long way to improving someone's life. So I'm your biggest champion. I love tech. It confuses me sometimes, but I really think that we need to get smarter about harnessing that and recognizing it as a resource that we can use to improve outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I want to take this opportunity now to close this side event and appreciate every one of you for participating. Thank you so much for coming. And also our guests, the Deputy Prime Minister Eswatini, for the support, the Commonwealth for the support that it has had, the Ghana government for supporting this side event, the Canadian Parliamentary and everybody else who has in one way or another participated. We want to appreciate you and call upon us, even as individuals, to continue lobbying our governments, to continue talking to those who we know can hear, to help us, even as we mark these 20 years of CRPD, that the DIAP will catapult, will push the implementation of CRPD to another level. Thank you so much.